If you have a business exceeding 2 million in revenue and are considering selling it in the near future, then this video, it's for you. In this video, I'm going to break down the exact steps and methods we use here at Atlantic Coast to help business owners like you sell their business for the maximum value and the least headache. Hey, I'm Keegan from Atlantic Coast Business Advisors. Over the past few months, we've closed deals like a $3.5 million HVAC company down in Georgia and a $16 million ag company out in Wisconsin. And right now, we're in the middle of selling a $4 million electrical contracting company. Today, I'm pulling back the curtain on these businesses to show you the exact methodologies that we use, from marketing strategies, buyer profiles, and just the general brokerage process, so you can use the same playbook when it's time to sell your business. Let's dive in. So, how to sell a $2 million business, a step-by-step guide by Atlantic Coast Business Advisors. If you own a business doing over $2 million in revenue and you've thought about selling, this video walks you through the exact process we use to help owners sell for maximum value. The reality most owners don't hear: 70 to 75% of M&A deals fail to deliver expected results. I think that industry-wide is accurate. I think it really depends on if you have a good brokerage firm that sets up the right expectations, because a lot of guys and girls, or just a lot of people, will inflate the value to get you to sign on the dotted line, give you unrealistic time frames. So there's a lot of people that will be like, oh, it'll take you 30 days, 60 days max to sell your business, when, average is 9 months. So I think that is accurate, but not necessarily always true. And then over 50% of deals fall apart during due diligence, most commonly because of issues the sellers didn't disclose up front. I also think that is overall true. I think that, again, it's setting you up for success, right? So if you don't put together the right package and the right due diligence processes, then yeah, probably even more than 50% is going to fall apart. Now, if you set things up right, you do a sim and the other things that we talk about in this video, then I think that number decreases dramatically. So it's not bad luck, it's bad preparation. And that's exactly what we're here to fix today. So who we are: Atlantic Coast Business Advisors. We're a full service M&A firm specializing in the lower middle market. What that means is we do deals from, $1 million all the way up to like 20, 30 million. We've done bigger deals than that, obviously, but that's kind of our bread and butter. Real M&A expertise for businesses historically underserved by traditional brokers. Again, that's just the lower middle market. Brokers swing for the fences and they want to take the 100 million plus deals. And I get it, but there's a lot of small business owners who put their heart and soul into their business, and they deserve the expertise that the big guys get. We take a new, modern, transparent approach, which, ask anyone who's ever worked with us. We are very upfront. We're very transparent about everything we do, and we're very honest. Like, we're not going to overinflate your valuation or anything like that. We tell you how it is because we look at it as a partnership, and we work with, we do, and we have worked with a lot of different industries. It's more exciting that way. And, we get to meet people from all walks of life and all different industries across the country and globally. So, it makes our job a lot more exciting when we get to work with people from all types of different industries. So the bottom line to us: you are a partner, not a transaction number. We're selective about who we work with because we're invested in your outcome, not just pushing volume through a marketplace listing mill. So we're not just going to get you to sign on the dotted line no matter what it takes and post it and send you off. We actually look at you as a partner, and your success is our success. Number one, get a proper valuation. This is not pulling a multiple off of Google or ChatGPT, which, I know is very tempting and what a lot of people do, but it's just not very accurate and can send you down a horrible rabbit hole. So what you need to understand: your adjusted EBITDA, so earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, and or SDE, seller discretionary earnings, and how to calculate them. What multiples actually apply to your specific industry, the size of your business, and the market you're in, right? If you're in Southern Indiana, your business might have a different multiple than a business in Northern California. And what buyers in today's markets are actually willing to pay. So yeah, it's great that if Google or ChatGPT takes a 20-year average and says, oh, this is probably right, but what people were willing to pay for a HVAC company in 1999 is much different than they're willing to pay today. And we cover all this valuation stuff in another video, so go check it out. Small businesses, typically a 2 to 4 times SDE. Mid-sized businesses, that's when you jump to EBITDA, and it's normally a 3 to 6 multiple. These are, again, just complete averages. 2024 median sale price was 3.2 million, So this is transactions from $0 to $20 million. So the average was 3.2 million with a 2.57 cash flow multiple. So that's telling you that many more small businesses are selling the bigger ones. And 81% of owners have no idea what their company is actually worth. That's accurate for sure, based on all the people that we talk to and other brokers talk to. Now, do 81% of business owners think that they know what their business is worth? Yeah, I think about 50 to 60% of business owners absolutely think they know what their business is worth until they actually have a true valuation, sellability test, and whatnot. So I would say 81% is pretty accurate. Pro tip: the gap between what owners think their business is worth and what it actually sells for is usually biggest when they skip this step. The number one mistake is overvaluing based on revenue instead of profitability. We hear that all the time. Well, if my revenue is this, then it's X times revenue. That's true for only a very small select few of industries. Normally it's based on cash flow, SDE, EBITDA, things like that. Perfect example, CPA firms, they sell generally based on a multiple of revenue, but that's very rare. And then I threw together this some of the reports that we generate. So if you want to take a quick screenshot of it, feel free. Step 2, prepare your financials and operations. Start this step 12, 24, 36 months before you're ready to sell. So you want clean P&Ls for at least 3 years. That's what buyers, lenders, and everybody wants to look at, is 3 years of P&L. If you have 5, even better. But 3 is pretty much the minimum. Tax returns that align with your financials. So, there's obviously a margin of error there, but if your tax returns are 30% off of what the P&Ls show, then there's an issue there. And at the end of the day, the tax returns are what you're reporting to the government. So that's what lenders, buyers, everyone's going to look at. But again, if they don't match your P&Ls, then that's a huge red flag and buyers could easily walk away, or you might not get lending on the business. Clear documentation of add backs. So all the things that go into the SDE or adjusted EBITDA. So things like, family on payroll, personal vehicles run through the business, all that stuff. That's all fine to do, and most small business owners do that. However, you just have to have clear documentation. So that way, when we say, hey, there's an extra $100,000 of add backs, here's a documentation of where all that money is going and why it is an add back, and balance sheets and cash flow statements ready. So basically just, have your accounting in order for at least 2 to 3 years before you're ready to sell. Operational preparation. So standard operating procedures, highly, highly important. And so many business owners do not have these in place. So that's documenting your processes and procedures. So everything from how you open up shop to how you run the operation in general, how you handle customer complaints, how you handle purchasing more material or new equipment, how equipment maintenance schedules, all that kind of stuff really helps drive the value of your business and makes it much less of a risk for a potential buyer. You're also trying to show that the business can run without you, whether that's, 24 hours, 20 weeks, whatever it is. If you can show that the business can operate, maybe not at its maximum ability, but it can operate without you as an owner, that's huge. And have a management team in place that can execute, right? So that's actually having key employees take some of the weight off your shoulders and shift it to somebody else. I will say the caveat to this is that a lot of times business owners, right before they want to sell, they'll hire or promote some kind of key employee. And you're like, oh yeah, we have key employees in place. It's great. And you're like, oh, how long have they been with the company? Well, we hired them 6 weeks ago. So, it's just, they're more than likely not going to work out. They're not trained yet. That does not matter at all to a lender or a buyer. So you want to have key employees in place for at least a year before you're ready to sell your business. So here's some key statistics for you. 70+% of business owners admit to not being prepared to sell. I think that's very accurate. Now, maybe it's a little less, but if you actually tell them what it takes to sell a business, then I think it is 70-80% of business owners just aren't in a good position where they could go to market today. And 32.5% is the typical valuation discount for highly owner-dependent businesses. So that means if the business can't run without you, you're losing quite a bit of value. So, it might be an expense to add a key employee or, pay someone to do some of the standard operating procedures and things like that for you. But at the end of the day, it's going to make a huge dent in your actual valuation. So much of the values in owner-dependent businesses is destroyed when the owner departs. Absolutely true. You see that especially in service-based businesses. Clean financials, recurring revenue, and low owner dependency are the top factors that raise valuations. 100%. Pro tip: if all the knowledge is in your head, that's a risk buyers will discount for or walk away from entirely. Messy books and owner-dependent operations kill deals or cost you serious money at the negotiating table. Definitely a pro tip. So number 3, build your SIM and teaser. So a SIM stands for Confidential Information Memorandum. It's a mouthful. That's why we call it a SIM. This is your business's resume for buyers. It tells your story, presents the financials professionally, and highlights growth opportunities. Does a bunch of other stuff too when it's done right. So what it includes. So first off, you have an executive summary. So that's kind of like the story of where the business is, how it got started, your involvement. Did you start it? Did your family start it? Did you purchase it? Just a kind of detailed summary of the business that is more lighthearted than anything. Next up, you have your financial performance and trends. So this isn't just shoving P&L numbers in there. It's actually taking a thoughtful approach of extracting key financial details from a period of 3 to 5 years to be able to show trends in that data and to give the potential buyer the data they need to say, yeah, like this is a business that I would like to move forward with. And it also is a good place to put some of the add backs and things like that, so that way they can just generally understand where those numbers are coming from in the actual valuation of the business and your asking price. Market position and competitive advantage. So sometimes you put in your competitors, a link to their website, people can go check them out. Just kind of where you are in the market. You can talk about Google reviews, website visitors, things like that. Growth opportunities. This is a great point to say, hey, look, if so-and-so comes in here and they do this, this, and this, the business should do this, but don't get all over dramatic about it. Don't say, oh, if someone came in here with $1 million and bought new equipment, we triple the business. Well, maybe, but you can't prove that. And not a lot of people are willing to throw like $1 million cash into a business to buy all new equipment. They want be more realistic with growth opportunities, I think is what I'm trying to say. If you can say, oh yeah, we could shave 3% here, grow 5% year over year here, I think that's much more realistic and doesn't raise any red flags for potential buyers. Team and operations overview. So this is where you put in some of your SOPs, just very broken down and simplified to say, yeah, we have an SOP for this, 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 and this. Just kind of reassures buyers and gives them confidence that, they can step into your shoes. And also you want to do the hierarchy of your team, right? So-and-so reports to so-and-so. So-and-so, has been with the company for 15 years. Employee tenure is a big thing to mention in SIMs, because if you have a team that's been around for a while, then obviously the business is much more stabilized. And again, lowers risk and makes buyers more willing to engage with your business and maybe offer a higher valuation multiple. And the reason for sale. So this is something we always put in there just because I think it's important for someone buying a business, like I bought businesses myself. Like I want to know why you're thinking about exiting, right? Are you stressed out? Because maybe I don't want to inherit that stress. Family emergency, just looking to do something else. I love when people tell me, hey, I'm just bored of doing this. I've been doing this for 20 years and I want to do something else. I want to take the money from this and invest in a new opportunity. I love that. Or you're just ready to retire, ready to be done. You built something for decades and you're ready to be done. Those are great reasons, and just being open and honest really assures the buyer that you're real and you're transparent and you're genuine. A couple other things to mention about the SIM before we move on. The SIM generally has been known to be like 30, 60, 80 pages long, and they put all the financial information in there, all kinds of different stuff. Most of it is just repeating the same garbage and the same fluff over and over again. And so when we first came into the brokerage space, I was reading through SIMs and, we were paying firms that specialize in developing SIMs. And what I was noticing is that as people reached out about them, it was evident that they didn't read anything in the SIM. They jumped to the financial overview and that was about it. So what we've done is we've dumbed down the SIM. We want it to be, 10, 15 pages max. We are very particular about the information that we put in there. We want it to engage the potential buyer, invoke curiosity. So, we leave some open-ended questions in there or some things that aren't quite clear. So that way they'll ask a follow-up question. And if they ask that follow-up question, then we know that they're serious and they took the time to really go through the SIM in detail. And what we found is that we're getting a much higher rate of people who've gone through the whole SIM. They're asking very educated questions, great follow-up questions. And we've been able to vet a large amount of leads just from, how they go through our SIM. And it's made an overall buying experience much, much, much better. And a teaser, I know we mentioned the teaser. The teaser is basically just a SIM broken down. You take out all the confidential information, so you can't really pinpoint what company it is or too much about them. But it's normally 1 to 2 pages. It has a lot of your personal contact information on it. So that way, if someone's interested in it, they can reach out to you directly. So in this case, it would be a broker, it'd be our brokerage firm. And what it does is you send that in specific emails to people that you think are highly qualified buyers. It could be someone who's in the same industry, someone that has previously indicated that they are open to an acquisition, things like that. Sent to them, they say, okay, here's a deal, more specific for me. It looks like it's tailored to me and what I'm looking for. So they read through. They're like, oh, it's this type of business. Maybe it's in this state or this part of the country, and this is like the revenue, net income, something like that. And they're like, okay, like let's call them up and figure out, let's learn more about this business. And from there, we go through, the qualification process. So, which leads us to our pro tip. A weak sim attracts tire kickers. A strong sim attracts serious qualified buyers who are ready to move. This document does more heavy lifting than most owners realize. 100%. The sim can make or break a brokerage process. Number 4, your go-to market strategy. So go to market strategically. Don't just list it and hope, which is unfortunately, what a lot of brokerage firms do, and a lot of business owners who list their business to themselves. You just list it and hope that the right buyer comes along. But you have to be way more proactive than that. You have to be way more thoughtful than that. So key actions, you want to identify who the right buyer is, right? It's not always just about a buyer. It's about finding the right buyer, because the right buyer is always going to make the transition smooth, lending smooth, and make sure that the whole process just is a lot less stressful. And you're probably going to get a higher multiple for it, so a higher overall value for your business. So you got to identify, are they a strategic buyer, a private equity group, an individual buyer, or maybe a direct competitor? Then you want to proactively find and approach the best fit buyers, right? So is that taking out ads in magazines? Is that YouTube videos like this? Is that trade magazines, trade Facebook groups specifically? Is that just, some Google SEO? Is it, direct mailers? Is it cold outreach? Like there's a million and one ways to market as, a small business owner, So it's about, figuring out what the best approach actually is, measuring those results, and then doubling down on that approach. And then it's about understanding current market conditions. So, you need to understand what's going on in the markets that you're in and also the industry that you're in, right? So the economy always seems to be a little shaky the last couple of years. So it's about understanding how that projection is going to affect your business and how that is also going to affect how buyers view your industry. So some market context. And we found this to be true, right? So 59% of optimistic CEOs, don't really know why I use the word optimistic. 59% of CEOs that aren't dicks are open to an acquisition opportunity, which basically means, hey, if we reach out to somebody and they're the CEO of, a well-established organization, we say, hey, we have an opportunity for you. We think you might be interested. More than likely, they're open to hear what we have to say, because they know that good growth can come through acquisitions. And 9 months, so that's the deal timeline. So that's improved dramatically from 2023, 2024. Now in Q2 2025, it was down to 9 months. That's just like M&A, an overview. I would say overall for us, it's about 6 months. We get, some deals done in 12 months, some deals done in 3 months. So overall, we land at about 6 month average. Actually 6 months and like 2 weeks, but who's counting, right? But still overall, most business owners are like, list the business, we do this, maybe, 60, 90 days it's sold. It takes quite a bit longer than that. And if you have a complex business, or, you got to get things prepared, maybe it's not a very lender friendly business, then, prepare for 12 to 18 months or longer. It's just the reality of the world we live in today. The pro tip for this one: the best buyer for your business might not be actively searching, they need to be found and approached. This is where having real M&A expertise, not just a listing service, makes a difference. 100% I 100% agree with that. Probably because I wrote it, but I do absolutely agree with it. So I would say 85, 90% of the deals that we close, the buyer came from off market, which basically means that, they didn't go to Biz Buy Sell and click on a listing and try to buy that business. We reached out to them, our marketing got in front of them, and they were like, hey, maybe this is a good opportunity. I wasn't really thinking about buying, but maybe I should. And that's where the best deals are found. That's where, you get the highest valuation multiples, things like that. When someone isn't actively looking, that's a very, very interesting buyer to have. Number 5, how to qualify buyers. Very, very important. So you want to protect your information before sharing it. So some key actions here. NDAs are critical, but they're just not enough. Not that many people take NDAs seriously, or seriously enough not to tell their buddy who then, knows your competitor and tells them. So you have to be very, very careful about the information that you share. Verify proof of funds before opening the kimono. Yeah, don't give someone your entire SIM or give them all your financial information or your data room or anything like that before you actually verify that they have some kind of capacity to actually purchase your business. So some key statistics: M&A managers screen an average of 20 candidates for each closed deal. 60% are immediately rejected. Due diligence is conducted for only 14%. So again, that's just like a general brokerage industry statistic. For us, we screen a lot more candidates, and I think, good brokerage firms, which there are plenty of them, I'm not saying it's just Atlantic Coast, will screen a lot more candidates than, 20 for each deal. And after you screen them and going through the actual due diligence process, I think it's 50% or less actually drop off through due diligence, just because you've done your job. You've created a good SIM, a good teaser, a good data room. So that means that by the time you get to the due diligence period, they basically already determined that they want to buy this business. Pro tip: you'd be amazed how many interested buyers can actually close. Qualifying them upfront saves you months of wasted time and protects your confidential information. So yeah, it is about protecting your information, but it's also just about wasting time. So you sign a binding letter of intent, and that interested buyer can't close, and they keep kicking that can down the road. Well, then all of a sudden you've lost months. I mean, I've seen it where, people have kept someone on the hook for 6+ months. So yeah, just something to be very aware of. And a quick example. So we talked about the 20 candidates, but this is an active listing right now that we have. And this is for 1 week. So 7 days of inquiries coming in. Obviously I had to black out some information because it's still confidential, but I just want to try to show you quick. So this is for an electrical contracting company. It's for buyer activity. This is in our CRM. So it's a $4 million. That doesn't matter. So last 7 days of activity, 219 total people have inquired. So that's through our different marketing campaigns, right? So that's anything from listings to direct campaign and cold email outreach, to marketing. We're marketing in a trade magazine, hitting some people up on LinkedIn, Facebook, things like that. So in 1 week, we've generated 219 people who have told us that they're interested in the business. So of that, 42 have signed a non-disclosure agreement. We've set up 18 phone calls. From there, we've, qualified people only down to 3 people who have gotten the SIM. 83 people are still in that follow-up mode. So that's, hey, we ask a couple questions initially, try to pre-qualify them, find out, if they have the ability and funds to close. So we're just waiting to hear back. Everything takes time. And then disqualified. So we've already disqualified 73 people from that list, whether or not they didn't have the financial capacity, they didn't ask the right questions, or, they were just straight up scammers. There's a lot of people who just want to buy or get and then sell your financial information. So again, this is 7 days of activity. And this is why you need to have all the proper systems in place to protect your information and your business. So quick pause. If selling your business is seriously something that you're considering, whether or not it's in the next 6 months, 12 months, or 5 years, feel free to schedule a free consultation with us. We'll put a link in the description below. And we're happy to give you, a free business valuation, sellability score, some market insights, and just kind of give you an idea of, what the process looks like, where you stand today, and how you can get to where you have a very successful exit. Something I highly recommend you take advantage of. Number 6, manage LOIs and negotiation. So this is where deals get won or lost. So the price is just one piece of the puzzle. Deal structure matters just as much. So deal structures have, many different moving pieces to it, but there could be things as like earnouts, seller financing, working capital adjustments, and just general transition terms. Maybe they want you to stay on for 6 months paid. Maybe they want you to stay on for 60 days unpaid. It just, there's a lot of different things that need to fall in place for a deal to close. And so and all of these will affect what you actually walk away with from a value standpoint. So key statistics: 91% of brokers say seller financing is critical in today's market. I absolutely agree with that. Fun fact is that 80% of all small business transactions include some type of seller financing. Normally like 5, maybe 10%. Is what we see the most common, but it just helps bridge the gap for a lot of potential buyers, helps give some credibility that you also believe in the business going forward, and helps kind of just give them that little safety net that, hey, you're invested in their success too. So you're not just going to dip out as soon as the business closes. So a couple statistics here. Use of earnouts remains above the 3-year average as financing challenges push sellers to bridge valuation gaps. Yeah, lenders are getting more and more difficult to work with. So a little bit of seller financing can go a long way. 22% average portion of a deal value held in seller notes. That's for 2024. I think that's a little high just from like what we've seen, but I definitely believe it, especially the smaller the deal, the bigger the seller financing, or the riskier the business, the larger the seller financing. And what I said before, 80% of all lower market deals have a percentage of seller financing. And pro tip, a $5 million offer with bad terms can net you less than a $4.5 million offer with clean terms. This is where having experienced representation really pays for itself. Absolutely agree. One thing to mention on this slide is that, seller financing and earnouts doesn't have to necessarily be in the buyer's favor or for them. It can be a way for you to kind of push off capital gains and also earn interest on that money as well. So it can take a little bit lower value offer and increase what you walk away from it with. So again, it doesn't just have to be because someone can't come up with the funds. It could be beneficial to you as the seller because you get to play the bank. You get an interest rate normally above current market rates, normally significantly, and you get to push off some taxes. So it's kind of a win-win. All right, now we're on to number 7. And number 7 is survive due diligence. Buyers will verify everything. So that means everything that they saw on the sim, the teaser, every bit of information you've shared via email, phone call, conversations, on-site visits, they want to verify everything, right? They're taking a huge risk in purchasing your business. It could be tens of millions of dollars. It could be, the risk of financial ruin if the business collapses after they purchase it. So they're going to want to examine absolutely everything. Now, what gets examined? So number 1, the customer concentration, just generally everything that they can learn about your customers, and relationships. So that can be relationships with suppliers, with competitors, if you have a friendly ongoing relationship, every relationship in detail that they can find out about your business and its customers. Next up, employee agreements and key person risk, right? So that's going to be verifying employee tenure, checking in when the last person got raises, things like that. If someone's being paid below market value, if they're a flight risk, if someone was fired for some reason and brought back to the company. We actually see that pop up a lot for some reason, that someone was terminated 6 years ago, ended up coming back around and coming back into the company. That's a red flag. And if there's any stay bonuses, things like that, and also just general feedback from employees, right? Do you guys do, annual assessments, things like that? Next is all contracts and legal exposure. So if you have contracts with vendors, subcontractors, any and all contracts that you have, and any legal risks that they're inheriting or that they need to redesign and just generally be aware of. Equipment condition and capital needs. So they're going to review if you are a service-based business, right? Let's say you're an electrical contractor and you have a fleet of vehicles. They're going to want to look at the service records for those vehicles, verify mileage, condition. What if all of them need new tires? What if something that we look for, right, when we help people on the acquisition side is we say, okay, for example, let's see if they were running this fleet on a budget. So we take a look, are all 4 tires the same wear? Are they all the same brand? Just all little tips and tricks that buyers will do and use to verify that the equipment is in the working order that you specified. And then capital needs, right? So they're going to look at monthly P&L reports, working capital requirements, everything that they can possibly put together to make sure that they're financially solid and they have a very good idea on how much it's going to cost to run that business for, the next 12 to 18 month period. And everything in your financials verified line by line. What I mean by this is, yes, they'll go through every line of P&L, balance sheet, everything. But ideally what they're really looking for is A, that your books match your tax returns, and B, all those add backs that we use to get either adjusted EBITDA or adjusted SDE, they want to verify those are in there. They were actually one-time expenses. If you said, hey, here's a line item for a $50,000 legal expense, Well, they're going to go inside, they're going to verify that, and then they're going to verify all the proof that you have of that was truly a one-time legal expense. Vacations that you might have took through the business that you want to write off, they're going to want some receipts and some other information from those to prove that it was just a personal expense write-off. And they will go through every single line and be prepared to answer questions and document everything that's in your P&L reports and on your tax returns. So some critical statistics: 50% of deals fall apart during due diligence. That is the average. Ours are significantly less than that, just because I think we work really hard to create a really good sim and provide enough information up front that by the time you get to due diligence, there's only a small margin of information left to verify. And if you're being honest and very upfront by everything, obviously, you don't know what you don't know, but you can do your best to make sure that before you even get into due diligence, that there's not going to be any skeletons in your closet. 62% of executives attribute deal failure to poor due diligence. Yeah, absolutely. If the deal looks great and you put together the world's best sim, but when they start asking you questions through due diligence and you start, shutting down and closing yourself off, not answering their questions, not being respectful of their time, then the deals can fall through, no matter if you're hiding something or not. But it starts every time you don't answer something quickly, you don't have the right information, then it all just starts slowly chipping away at the confidence of that buyer. Next up, 80% of information should be shared before due diligence begins. So for me, that's like the 80-20 rule. 80% of the information. Now, you're not showing them all the information and getting deep down into the P&L reports and all that kind of stuff before they're in due diligence and everything's been accepted. However, you want to give them a very good idea, and 80% of what you have going on, because then when they get to the due diligence, all they are is just really verifying the things that they already know about your business. So that's why I try to be, and I encourage business owners to be a little bit more upfront before they get to that process, because otherwise, if you're only letting them peek behind the curtain and showing them 20, 30, 40% of your business before due diligence begins, well, then there's a good chance that you're going to get the business tied up under a binding letter of intent. And, 3 months goes by, you're putting all these documents out to them. They're trying to verify them. Things get messy. They walk away. And then, there goes 90 days, 180 days that you should have been out there marketing your business, but instead you were caught up with one buyer because you didn't show them enough information for them to make an educated decision of whether or not they wanted to buy your business. And 91% of executives say culture fit is critical to success. Absolutely agree with that. Most people we talk to, they talk about the numbers, verify financials, employee, all this kind of stuff. But a very big question on top of the most successful executives that I've worked with is, what's the company culture like? And I think it goes beyond company culture. It also goes to what's that, if it's an owner operated business, something that we strive for is saying, okay, what is that owner operator's personality traits, right? So for instance, we sold a restaurant last year, and the owner that was leaving was a very loud, funny, just kind of general jolly guy to be around. So kept the staff on their toes just from kind of being loud and obnoxious, but in a good, fun, joking way. And the person buying the business was very quiet, very reserved. So we had to have a conversation about that says, look, this is the work culture now, this is the personality traits, and this is what people expect when they come into work every day. And so if you're the guy who hides away in his office, it's going to create this uneasy sense throughout the entire company. And so again, just some tips and tricks to pick up on, what is your company culture? Can you define it? And is it something that's easily seen by a potential buyer? And a pro tip: surprises during due diligence calls retrading, which is basically buyers lowering their offer after finding issues, or worse, they walk away entirely. So disclose everything up front, warts and all. It builds trust and keeps the deal alive. And that's something that I fail to see when we look at a lot of other sims. Like when we have a client who comes to us and we're looking for a business for them to buy, and we start looking through sims, so many people write them like it's just all too good to be true. There's so much fluff involved in them, when really, when you put the good and the bad and are completely open about where the company stands, that builds a whole nother level of trust that makes me and other potential buyers say, yes, I trust everything you're saying. I feel like you are very realistic about where the business is at. And it gives me an extreme level of confidence to say that, okay, if I buy this business, I know where it's at today and I know where it can be tomorrow. Number 8, close and transition. So this is the finish line, but it's not the end of your responsibilities. So the final steps, you got the legal documents finalized. Big thing here, always work with M&A attorneys. So a lot of people, they have a friend who's an attorney of some sort, or they have a real estate attorney that they've worked with before. Not working with the right attorney in these types of deals causes a lot more red lines, a lot more unnecessary expenses. And, I've seen and personally been a part of deals where using the wrong attorneys absolutely kills deals. And so our job as the broker is to make sure that we wrangle in the attorneys as much as we can, get to the middle ground, and make sure that everyone understands what the deal is and what needs to actually be put in the stock purchase agreement or the asset purchase agreement. Because if you start off with everyone on the same page and you make sure that that is clearly defined to the attorneys and their M&A attorneys, the legal documents are going to be a very smooth transition, and it's going to cost you a lot less in legal fees than if your buddy from down the road who sold you, did your real estate closing, tries to do the M&A transaction. Funds transfer, that's normally done by a closing agent, like one of the attorney's offices or something like that, or the lender. Transition period begins. So this is where, you show up to work for the first time in X amount of years and you're not the boss anymore. There's a new business owner there. We try our best as a firm to make sure that, there's everything to look at, like personality matches and things like that. But, we try to prepare you for when you do walk in the door the day after closing and you now are an employee of the business, and your say, although valued, doesn't really mean anything anymore because you no longer own the business. And that's a hard step for a lot of business owners to make. I've done it myself personally, and it's an awkward feeling, but we try to make it as seamless as possible. And it's also about letting employees know, and your clients, anyone know that the business is now in new hands. And that's a very delicate process that needs the utmost care to make sure that it is effective. And knowledge transfer, right, to new ownership. So if you have the SOPs and stuff like we talked about earlier, that makes that knowledge transfer, and key employees, that all helps make that knowledge transfer much easier. But, there's always little things that us as business owners just don't think about. It could be logins and passwords to emails. It could be, just little tips and tricks that we've built over the years. And even, like, let's say you have clients, contractors or something like that you work with, and how to, each one handles a little differently. Like so-and-so likes to get paid, on the first of every month, where so-and-so likes if you wait a little bit longer. So just, there's a lot of little things that, you need to be prepared to transfer to make sure that they have, the buyer has the biggest chance for success, right? And timeline reality. So expect 6 to 11 months to close. I think that's pretty accurate for most businesses. Many owners think it'll take less than 5 months. You're just wrong. Sorry. 168 days is the median time on the market in 2024. Yeah, I think that's for a larger scale businesses, but yeah, I think that's probably accurate. And mid-market sales typically take 8 to 12 months start to finish. I agree with that. Backing up to the 160 days time on market. So time on market isn't just from you decide to sell your business to closing. Time on market is you put the financial documents together, you put the SIM together, the teaser, the marketing plan, the data room, you built all that, then you take it to market, then the deal comes off market when a LOI is accepted, and then you go through, you can go through due diligence and everything else. So that's your 160 days of just sitting there waiting for the right buyer to come knock on your door. Should be less than that. And pro tip, a smooth transition protects your final payout, especially if there's any seller financing or earnouts involved. Don't check out mentally the moment the LOI is signed. Absolutely. We constantly coach business owners that, hey, just because you got an accepted offer, there's still a lot of work to do. Due diligence can be difficult. It can be stressful. You want to do your best to make it as streamlined as possible, but different lenders have different expectations, different experience levels. So sometimes lenders are asking for I'd be surprised if they don't ask for your blood type, really. So, you got to be prepared and stay mentally strong until, that deal closes and the transition period's over. Because I'll give you a bonus pro tip, right? Every single transaction, no matter what type of business, what industry, what size transaction, there's always some kind of hurdle or roadblock that you're not expecting. Now, as brokers, we do our best to mitigate this and to lower the risk, but there's always something, and it can be small. It could be something that's so minute it doesn't really affect the deal, but still something pops up. Or it could be something big. I mean, we've had things pop up where, 2 days before closing, the seller went out and financed like a $250,000 luxury car, tanked their credit, and all of a sudden the lender's like, hey, we don't know if you have the capacity to afford this business anymore. So, wasn't expecting him to go buy, I think it was a Ferrari. Didn't expect them to go buy a Ferrari, but hey, you can't predict everything. So the job is to make sure the transaction goes as smoothly as possible, and just be prepared for when something goes wrong, because it will go wrong. And our job as brokers is to make sure that there's a fix to it as quickly as possible and without damaging the value of the deal, the structure, and the timeline. So if you're ready to sell, book a call with us. You can talk to me personally. You can talk to anyone at our firm. If you've been thinking about selling your business, but you're not fully sure how the process works, even after watching this video, we can take a really in-depth look at the process from start to finish, what that looks like for you and your specific business, along with a business valuation, how to get you where you want to be, how sellable your business is, and some of the red flags that, potential lenders and buyers will look at. So we'll put a link in the description below where you can trust that we'll give you, no pressure, just straight answers. And we truly believe that the best decisions are educated decisions. So, if you are thinking about selling, whether or not it's with us, another brokerage firm, or selling on your own, we're just happy to be a resource for you and allow you to make those educated decisions. So until the next video, I hope you guys have a great week, and thanks for watching.